What I'm going to do every single day when I'm on that island and it's tough, I'm struggling to find food and it's really hot and I don't have any suntan lotion and I've made friends with a football, named it Wilson. I want to take a photo frame and in it, it's going to be a single photo, just one person. I want to be able to look at that photo and think, thank you, lucky stars. At least you don't have to spend time with that anymore.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Desert Island Tricks. Today we have another guest waiting in the wings. Now, it feels weird having this guest just as a one person. And the reason is normally he is with a second person. But we decided to have them apart. For one particular reason, we're going to try and find out if each of them can work out the other person's list. So we're going to find out if them working so close together for so many years, if they will be able to work out what the other person is going to select. Now, this is young and strange. Now, if you have listened to podcasts, there's one podcast that every magician should have listened to, and that is the Magician's Podcast. It's the one that started it all. Let's all be honest. It's the one that paved the way for the rest of us. And the guests over the years on that podcast have been absolutely incredible. Today's guest is probably the closest that we're going to get to a real journalist in magic. That's what I'm putting it down to. Today's guest is the wonderful Mr. Richard Young. Hello, Richard.
What? I've never had an introduction as good as that, Jamie. I mean, I cannot thank you enough. Yeah, thank you. That was better than any intro I've ever given anybody. I mean, that was almost Craig Petty level intro, that wasn't it? It was that good. I'm very excited to be here. I'm very excited to be here without Strange. I'm sure you got the emails where I refused to take part in one with him because we've been working together now for 14 years. We can't stand each other. So any opportunity to do things individually, we always take. So make your life a bit easier.
Well, I have a story for you that I've told others, but I've never spoken to you about.
Okay.
And this was a time that I saw you and Strange perform. We were in a little church hall or town hall. I think it was either a town hall or a church hall. And you were trying out for a TV show that was going to be on. And I was in the room with Angelo Carbone, Alan Rorison, myself, and you guys. And you did this incredible trick where you transposed and then one of you ended up in a completely different place. Now, we've all seen those tricks in a big theatre, but there was a wonderful experience that I'll probably never have again, so thank you for this, of seeing it in that little room, not being aware of what was going on, and everyone in that room being absolutely stumped as to how it happened, because when you're in that little area, it doesn't feel like anyone could have gone anywhere. It was so well constructed that no one in that room... I remember looking over at Alan Rorison and we were sure that there was twins involved. That's how good it was. It was such a good performance. I loved it.
Well, there was, and it's not a big secret anymore. But I know exactly when you talk about it. It was when we auditioned for Fool Us in like 2011. That was only the third or fourth time Strange and I'd ever performed with together. We were both working as close-up magicians, but we'd only just started dabbling with stage stuff. And we saw the pilot with obviously John Archer and Ben Earl. And I said, I think we should audition for that because if we use Barney, your twin brother, I think they'll really like that as a secret. And so we talked Barney into it, Strange's twin, and rocked down to, I think it was Hammersmith it was. And yeah, it was great because there were magicians in the room that knew Strange, but they did not know that he had a twin. So I think they did get a moment of astonishment from it. And I remember my main memory of that actually was the producers taking us into a little room at the back saying, so how is it done? And we went and got Barney out of the van and came in, and it was exactly what they were looking for at that point. This new TV show, Penn and Teller fool us, and it was exactly the kind of secret that they, I guess, were hoping was going to fall in their lap. So yeah, we were absolute nobodies at the time. A lot of people didn't know us, but we got on the show and had an absolutely amazing experience. I will go as far as to say, actually, I don't think we would. I don't think we'd have probably ever become young and strange without that first little breakthrough. And it's been amazing. I don't mind. I'm allowed to say this, but in the last few months, we've just gone back to Vegas and we've just filmed Fool Us for the third time. And the premise of our trick on this upcoming season is that we're the first act to ever come back on the show with the same trick again, but we've changed the method. And we are doing that same trick again, but Strange gets signed by Penn. So it's not his twin brother. So it's going to be. My understanding is that Penn and Teller are together for 50 years um, next year, and we've been told. I mean, obviously things could change. We could end up on the editing room floor, but what we've been told is that we'll be part of the 50th anniversary special Fool Us episode that will go out early next year. So there you go. Really looking forward to it.
Well, I'm really looking forward to seeing that. But it does mean that we can now discuss what you could. Obviously, you've both worked together for so long now, and one would presume that you both have similar interests. So we may see some crossover in your lists. But if you were to guess his list, what would you go for?
He loves card manips, so he's going to take a set of manipulation cards. I think that will keep his brain going. I think he's going to want to take some big grand illusions just to play with, and I don't imagine you've had many people say that on this, but yeah, I think he's going to want some bigger toys to play with. Um, he's absolutely obsessed by the plot of Object to Impossible Location. If you ever see Sam Strange's close-up set, he does that trick about 5 times in different ways, whether it's Ring Flight or Bill in Lime or Destination Box. They're all in the same set. It's an absolute disaster, to be honest. And I've been telling him to change it for about a decade, but he loves that plot. It's his absolute favourite. So there will definitely be some Object Impossible Locations in there, no doubt about that.
And yeah, you're right. We haven't had many grand illusions. And normally I have a little guess of what the guests are going to say. I reckon we have to have some sort of bigger, larger tricks with you.
Yeah, I'm just looking at I've spent a lot of time on it. First of all, let me just congratulate you and Alakazam. This is a brilliant format for a podcast, and I'm absolutely furious I didn't think of it myself. It's very, very good, very thought provoking. I've spent more time thinking about the answers to these than I spent on the Sam Strange episode of the Magician's podcast. And I've had a real tough time with that last question about a non magic object. That we'll get to that. But yes, I do have some grand illusions, which I think are going to keep me sane on the desert island. I don't know where you want to start. Really, we could start with that if you like.
Well, let's let the guys know. So if you've not listened to this podcast before, the idea is that we are about to maroon Richard on his very own desert island. When he's there, he's only allowed to take 8 tricks, 1 book, and 1 non-magic item that he uses for magic. Now, particulars like who's there, what audience are there, the size of the island, stuff like that, we really don't mind. The idea is that these are the tricks that if Richard could only perform these for forever, that's what he would perform. So with that being said, let's go to your desert island right now and find out what you put in position 1.
Well, I think this is absolutely fitting because we're going to go to the desert island using the illusion that David Copperfield uses to go to the desert island. So, if you've not seen it, the portal vanish, which is an illusion that ended Copperfield's show for about a decade in the early 2000s, is all about him going to a desert island, and he goes with a member of the audience, and he's signed, and he takes a Polaroid photo with him, and they go off to Jamaica or wherever it is on that particular night. But the convincers and the things that prove he's really there are good. I don't think they would stand the test of time in today's technological world. If you ever watch it on YouTube, you have to remember that it was the early 2000s, and he was, as is always the case with illusionists, he was ahead of the curve with using some technology which is now quite commonplace. However, the bit of the illusion that I want to take to the desert island, I want to perform myself, is the vanish of that illusion. If you've never seen it, it is, I mean, almost certainly the most stunning vanish of a human being, or in this case, two human beings that was ever created. It was obviously invented by David and his team. It was built by a man called David Mendoza, and he famously in the 80s he built a lot of the impaled illusions, with where the magicians are on a sword and they fall through it. And I had a most amazing experience with this vanish. Actually, in 2006, I made my first ever trip to Las Vegas, and I could not wait to see Copperfield's show. And I booked the front row. And this vanish basically is a long arm that comes out over the heads of the audience, and on the end of it, like out over the audience, is almost like a shower cubicle. That's the best way I can describe it, albeit without the glass. And Copperfield and this guy stand on it, and they pull a curtain round. There's a light inside, and in a few seconds, they're gone. Now, the secret to any vanish, it's really easy to figure out a vanish if whenever you watch a stage show. It went one of these ways. It went up, down, left, right, forwards, or backwards. You just have to figure out which way it went, right? Or it was never there in the first place and it was a hologram or something. Well, when I saw this, I was in the front row, so I had to turn round and look at the back of it, and there were people to the sides and there were people in front of it, and they vanished. It blew that theory out of the water. And I absolutely, if you'd have put a gun to my head at that moment and said, "How is it done?" I would have had absolutely no idea. Two fully grown men, one of which at the time was in his early 50s, vanished in the blink of an eye, behind me on a crane arm. I subsequently found out the method to it. And I know we don't talk about methods on your podcast here, but I will just say that is one of those tricks. When you find out how it's done, it's even more impressive. I met someone, we tour around in America, Strange and I, in a show called Champions of Magic, and we often go to a lot of venues where Copperfield used to perform many years ago. And I got chatting to a guy in Atlantic City once who remembered that illusion. And I said, "Oh, is this how it's done?" I was being nosy. And it was he signed an NDA, so he wouldn't tell me exactly, but he did say this. He said, "It's effing dangerous." That was what he said. It's effing dangerous. So if you've got an idea how it works, and remember I talked about how fast they disappear, you might be able to do some of the maths yourself. So I want to take that illusion to the desert island. It's a teleporter. Maybe, Jamie, it might be my way off of the island. I'm not sure. But that's the first one I'm taking.
Well, that's a very practical way of looking at it. I like that very much. Yeah, it's a wonderful trick. And I mean, I've seen lots of, and you'll have to forgive me, I know very, very little about stage illusions and how they work.
Same as Strange, don't worry. I've carried him with it, so you have to worry and carry you for an hour. It's
fine. But watching David Copperfield's vanishes over the years and just admiring them just for their pieces of theatre, each vanish that he does. I'm sure there was another one with, it may have been twins or something like that, and the woman sort of disappears underneath this cloth, and there's obviously wind billowing up, and it's almost like her form vanishes as he grabs the cloth. It's such a beautiful moment.
Yeah, that's called the voyeur, and that is two women actually at the same time again. And yeah, absolutely stunning. Again, you could look that up. It was on the last TV special he made in 2001 called Tornado of Fire. It's a bit of a weird scene where he's like watching two women make love through a window. It doesn't stand the test of time from that point of view, but my God, the illusion does. It still to this day looks absolutely stunning.
Yeah, it really does. Well, it's a great choice and quite a big. It's a heavy hitter of a routine to go for in your opening position. So interested to see where this is going to go. So what did you put in your second position?
So my second thought was that ultimately I'm going to have a lot of spare time on this desert island. And I started to think about tricks that I do when I'm bored or tricks that I love to play with. And this is going to sound like a plug for Alakazam, but it's really truly not. It's just a coincidence. There is a trick that Alakazam put out years ago on, well, it wasn't Alakazam's trick, but they put out a set of DVDs with Michael Vincent. And they are absolutely incredible. I'm not sure if you can still get them. Maybe you can buy them on demand now on the Alakazam website. But they're absolutely brilliant, and they're multiple versions of these DVDs. There's ones where Michael's doing coin tricks, card tricks, and on I believe it's the first one. There is a trick called the Intuitive Speller, and it is so much fun to perform. It is the trick I go to when I'm at the magic circle and I want to fool a magician. It's effectively borrowed. You can borrow a deck of cards off of anybody at any time, and you can say to them, "My favorite playing card is the," and you say whatever card, and then you go and I can just spell to it whenever I like. And so you've taken back from them a shuffled deck of cards. You don't change the order, and you spell down QUEENOFHEARTS, and there is the Queen of Hearts. It's absolutely brilliant, and it's unbelievably fun to learn. It's a bit like card on ceiling in that you don't know it's worked until the last moment. It's not a trick where all the dirty work's done at the beginning and you know you're safe. Quite the opposite. You are flying by the seat of your pants with it, right up until the moment you turn the card over. But it's it's just so much fun to do. You can get really, really good at it. I don't really want to tip any more of what the method is, but it's unlike anything else in card magic I've ever learned, and it's just fun just to keep what I often do when we're in an airport and our flight's delayed or something, just to sit there with a deck of cards and shuffle it and then do the moves and then just spell to these random cards and see if you can hit it spot on. It's a brilliant, brilliant trick, and it will absolutely burn a lot of time for me on the desert island.
Well, anything by Michael Vincent's incredible. He's just such a wonderful performer. And the sets that you're on about, I think there was like Rhapsodies in Silver, Elegant Deceptions. All of those box sets were phenomenal. But you might not be aware of this, but a lot of our listeners will be. We have a streaming platform now, and
I did know about this. Yes, yes. It's on
I
that, is it?
well, I have the power to put it on there. And since you've just mentioned it, by the time this podcast goes out, if you guys want to check out Richard's second choice, then head to Alakazam Unlimited and it will be on there by the time that this goes out.
Well, that's amazing that you can do that because I mean, legit. I mean, it's part of a DVD set, which I think was about £50 or £60 to buy. So, if you're just going to stick that, and it is, in my opinion, the best trick on the DVD set, and it's right at the very beginning. If you're able to just get that now through the subscription, that's a real. But you will absolutely love it. You don't have to be great at card magic. You don't have to really know any sleights. It is. It's just something completely unique that you can learn, and I promise you, you will fool magicians with it if you spend an hour or so learning it. It's brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Well, I'm looking forward to rediscovering that one. And we've gone opposite ends of the spectrum here. We've gone for the Portal Vanish, quite large, with a crane arm, down to a deck of cards in an airport as your
Yes.
board. So that leads us on to your third position. What did you put in your third spot?
Also, my first thought was, getting on the island, getting off the island. My second was boredom. My third thought was actually what would make me really, really happy. So I'm going with emotions here and then finding the tricks from that. And I'll tell you a trick that makes me really, really happy, and it puts a big beaming smile across my face, is Wow Miranda's Leviosa. I absolutely love this little technological marvel trick. I love everything about it. I know I've heard all the criticisms. I've heard the magicians don't like it. I've heard why they don't like it. For me, it's just so much fun to do. It's naughty. You press a button and it does everything for you. But the deck flies like a bird and their card goes flying out. I mean, it's just every now and again, I know there's purists out there who, like to read the books and learn the slides, but every now and again, we do need to take a second just to marvel at the tech side of magic. And I know we can look at like Mark Kirstein's apps and stuff like that. But for me, Leviosa, this unbelievable thing built into this little tiny block that looks like a deck of cards that does so much. And it's set ready to go when you take it out the pack. But also, if you want to, you can program it and change how long the delay is and all that kind of stuff. For me, the minute I saw it, I fell in love with it. The minute I saw it, I bought it. I own 3 of them now because I'm terrified that it's going to go discontinued and I'll be without it. And every time I perform it, I I feel very, very naughty and very, very cheeky, and I have a big smile across my face. Also, there's another reason why I've chose this, which is if I'm on this desert island, I'm obviously going to hope at some point I'm going to be found, right, and rescued. And I think if I'm on the island with a Leviosa, there is a possibility Michael J. Fitch might come and find me because I am the only person who is able to fix his broken Leviosa. He is incapable of fixing the broken thread. And he always, a month or so ago, he drove an hour and a half to my house because he had an important gig and I fixed his Leviosa for him because he wasn't able to do it. So I reckon if it's, if I've got this Leviosa and, people can hear the noise from a bit of a distance, Fitchy might, he might find me and I might end up being rescued.
Yep, great. Well, he is lined up to come on this podcast, so I'll let him know that you've just mentioned that, and we'll see if Leviosa's on his list. It's a great trick. I know that Harry in the shop dems it constantly, and as soon as people see that deck fly up, and it's one of those weird tricks where I genuinely mean this. It's so much better in real life than on video.
Yes.
Video does not do that trick justice, even a tiny bit.
I think also, Jamie, it truly does have that moment of astonishment. It doesn't last for long, but they don't see that coming. I did it at a gig on Saturday, and it doesn't last for long. Like I said, I think they do go, oh, it's probably on a bloody string or something, right? But the moment when it flies up, I've seen it. I've done it hundreds of times now. You do see people's jaws drop open. They look to the person next to them to go, "Did you just see what I saw?" And so, like, bottle through table is an amazing trick. Every worker out there knows that it can get you booked, and it has that moment of astonishment as well, right? When the bottle goes through the table, but they can still see the top of the bottle. And I think Leviosa is underrated. Actually, I think that Paul Harris wrote about astonishment, and I think I'd fight, I'd debate that with anybody. That I believe Leviosa has a true moment of astonishment as strong as bottle through table. Again, it doesn't last forever, but I've seen it with my own eyes. It is absolutely one of the greatest tricks that's come out in the last 10 years. Without a question, the best trick of last year. Um, and I think it'll be around. Also, it allowed me to get rid of Omni Deck at the end of my ambitious card routine, which I've been trying to do forever. We've all done close-up jobs and put that block of plastic in their hands, and they go, "Oh, another guy did this to me," or I remember, was it somebody? Maybe it was Strange who said he one Christmas he did Omni Deck and it was in the middle of London, and some guy said to him, "You're the third person to do that trick to me this month." Um, so yeah, being able, and it's exactly the same process. In the way you switch in the Omni Deck, you switch in the Leviosa deck, and on the fly, and then you're able to do. You're doing something that most likely they haven't seen before. Whereas every time I put that block of plastic in someone's hand, there's a side to me going, "Oh, I hope they haven't seen this before."
Yeah, it's a superb trick, and I think there are levels of methods being discounted in that because the cards cut themselves, so it almost feels like there couldn't be anything attached to that deck. And then I've seen different people perform it different ways, but most people tend to step away from the deck as they're displaying something before then moving back to the deck. It doesn't feel like anything could be attached to that deck, and the distance away that you are from that deck of cards, I cannot imagine that even, like, people may go, oh, maybe it's wires or strings or anything, but there's no conceivable way that they could think that could be attached to that deck in any circumstance.
Yeah, I mean, also if you've done it where you've had the deck of cards, a real deck of cards in play, if you've done ambitious card, you shouldn't do Leviosa just by itself. It should be a finish to a routine, I think. And so if you've had that normal deck of cards in play, when you switch it in, well, think about it. A normal deck of cards couldn't be lifted up on an invisible string, right? It wouldn't. It would break. Um, so again, that helps with it. And I definitely would say it's every magician should have it. Every magician should play with it, and at least if it works for them in a performance setting. But you've got to absolutely do another trick first, and then switch it in on the offbeat. And if they've seen a real deck of cards, it will have twice the impact, I believe.
Yep, superb. And it brings us to your fourth position. I'm not going to say halfway because there's some debate at the moment online as to what the halfway point of this list is. So the one before the fifth, we'll go for that.
This is just nothing more than, well, I'm thinking about food. Obviously, that's my next thought process, right? My next thought process is food, and it's Teller's Miser's Dream. his because there's a big bowl of fish at the end that I'd be able to eat. So so yeah, not just for that reason. Obviously, I watch that trick and wish I could perform it. It's perfect. I saw it last week. I was very lucky. I was in Las Vegas last week, and I saw Penn and Teller's show, and they got loads and loads of new things in the show, and all the old golden stuff is gone, but that is still in the show, and it gets a reaction unlike anything else in their show. When he drops those coins in and all those goldfish appear, um, it's one of the best moments in magic. I'm not exaggerating. It is. It connects with it connects with everybody in the room, young, old, any nationality, any any type of human being. Like if they can see it, it's going to connect with them. They don't see it coming. They're seeing a coin trick that is brilliantly done, by the way. And I, for a few years, didn't quite understand where the coins were coming from. When you watch it, it's an overlooked point of Teller's Miser's Dream. Um, that if you watch it, actually try and figure out where the coins are coming from because there's a lot going on there. He's not just doing the traditional dropping one in, but he's retaining it and he's got a load in the other hand. You know, he's not doing that. He is legitimately dropping them in the glass bowl. Um, it's absolutely perfect. I Every time I see Penn and Teller, I hope they're going to do it. And if I see the show and my girlfriend or something, it's the bit when I go, watch this, watch this. I get excited. It's perfect, absolutely perfect, and some would say delicious on a desert island.
Uh, Again, absolutely agree with you. It's such a wonderful piece. I'm not sure if they still do it this way. I'm fairly sure they used to do it in pretty much pure silence. It used to just be this thing was just happening in front of everyone. They didn't. It doesn't need any punctuation. There's no music that really needed to happen with it. It was just beautiful as it was.
Yeah, I mean the only sounds are the sounds of the coins, and I think we've done it where you think it's by default. You do something. "Oh, let's look for the music that's going to match this trick, this illusion, this piece of theatre." Richard McDougall was the first one I heard talk about the power of silence. It's brave. It's brave to do it. Not something you can probably do in your first year or two of performing it. With the silence would be terrifying, but it's yeah, particularly like in the Penn and Teller show where Penn just talks constantly. That silence is appreciated. And I don't mean it to be rude. Like it just is. It's intense listening to Penn talking 100 miles an hour for 90 minutes. So that bit when he shuts up and he walks off and walks off stage and Teller is left by himself in silence with the fish tank. It's like I said, it's perfect. I bet they did try music. I bet they did probably. I'd love to know actually. I did interview Teller once. It didn't occur to me at the time. That's a question I'd love to ask him. Did they play with music initially, or did they always understand it was going to be most powerful in silence? I don't know.
Yeah, it's a wonderful trick. If people haven't seen it, I think there are videos of it online, so do go check it out. It's beautiful. It really is. It's just incredible. It's literally magic poetry is the best way of putting it. But it does bring us to your fifth position. So what did you put in your fifth spot?
So I've run out of desert island connections now. Really, now I'm just on to tricks that I love. There's a trick that I've played with for best part of 20 years now, and I'm still absolutely shit at it. But I love it, and it's called Coin One. It's by Homer Liwag, who is one of David Copperfield's like key collaborators. And he put this trick out in the early 2000s, and it's a coins across routine with 4 coins, 4 silver Morgan dollars. You can also do it with half dollars. And it's a real knuckle busting trick. Actually, it's quite difficult to do. It uses some very odd sleights that I've never seen anywhere else before, including this kind of move where you've got a coin clipped between your fingers and you're moving your hand in a downward motion to bring the coin through your fingers. It's quite difficult to do. Um, it's got this absolutely incredible moment for me, the best moment in coin magic, which is there is this moment where you have 2 coins in each hand, so you're halfway through the routine, and they know by now what you're doing. And there's this moment where you have 2 coins in each hand, and you go the third coin, and you point with your thumb. because they're all laid on your hand. The third coin, this coin, if you watch closely, you'll see it jump into my right hand, and they see the coin jump. Literally, you throw it from your left hand to your right, and you catch it, and you go, "Did you see it go?" And it's like a joke, right? They go, "Haha, yeah, I saw it," and then you go, "Nothing happened," and they look at your hands a bit more closely, and actually, you still have two coins in each hand. So the coin they saw jump across, was it an illusion? Did it not go? Did it quickly go back again? Like, and it's I think one of the best moments in coin magic. It's the reason I learned it, and I've played with it forever. I have quite small hands, so I learnt it with American half dollars. And a few years ago, I did treat myself to a set of Jamie Schoolcraft Precision Morgan dollars, and it was about $600 I paid for these coins, and they're beautiful, but they're too big for my hands. I can't do the trick, so they just sort of sit upstairs. Um, Interesting thing with them, actually. I don't know whether people ever talk about this. Really, it's quite a niche thing, but those really beautiful silver Morgan dollars that you see, where they're black around the edge. So the process of getting them to look like that is that you put them in bleach. You drop them in bleach, and then they don't have to be in there very long. A few minutes, you take them out, and then you clean them, and you get this beautiful contrast between the polished silver and the black that the bleach has caused. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, have a look at the Schoolcraft website, and you'll see these beautiful coins. Um, so I bought a set of these coins, and they arrived, and they didn't look like that. They were just bright silver. So I emailed the guy, Jamie, and said, "Oh, I thought they were going to look black." And he said, "We don't do that anymore because they're real coins and they don't always come out looking right. So if you choose to do it at your own risk." Very, very fair. So I did it. I dropped these four coins and a shell into some bleach, and there were five of them in total, and four of them look absolutely perfect, and one of them is a disaster. And as Jamie said, you just never know. These coins are from the 1800s. You never know what they've been through. You never know whether somebody else messed with them at some point. Did they get polished? Did they get sanded? Like, there are all of these things. So yeah, I have this set of $600 coins, and one of them doesn't look great. So I learned my lesson. He did warn me. But yeah, coin one is a beautiful trick. If you've never seen it, it's in my opinion the best coin trick. And the reason I want to take it to the desert island with me is it's a bit like the intuitive speller that I mentioned earlier. I think I could practice it forever, and it would remain interesting to practice. I would probably stay pretty shit at it, so it would give me a reason to pick it up again tomorrow and try again.
I think that's a really interesting point, and it's one that we had actually with Chris Harding, who mentioned he has practiced the floating cane for years, and he spent more and more hours on that than any other trick, but he's not at a stage where he feels like he would go and perform it. It's not so much about the performance of it, it's just about the process and the enjoyment of learning it. And I think not everyone's really thought about that with their list. Is this just a trick that I enjoy practicing? Is it just something that I'm not necessarily going to show anyone? It's just for me. It's just something that I enjoy doing it. So yeah, it's a really interesting way of thinking when it comes to a list, I think.
Yeah, I just think that yeah, there are these tricks that I think we probably all have where we've just spent an awful lot of time on them. I mean, I very rarely perform it. Actually, it's interesting. I've just jogged my own memory. So Strange and I obviously make our living in Champions of Magic, but in that show, we only really do about 30 or 40 minutes because there's lots of magicians in the show. Last year, we started doing our own shows in America. And so we had to find more material. And I do this little close up set in the audience, and I can do anything in it, really. And so I play around with it. And I've tried everything from, Mark Kirstein's app tricks to the architect of predictions. I've done digital force bag. I've tried ambitious card. I've done Leviosa, and I did try coins across. Uh, and Man, that trick, coin one. There's a big difference between practicing it and doing it 35 minutes into a stage show when you're a bit hot. and I survived, but I knew immediately when I started that the coins were not gonna flip through my fingers in the way they would when I'm sat like I am now in my living room. If I sat here doing it now, it would be fine. But that extra just little bit of heat and that clamminess that came from being on stage, doing the cardboard box trick with Strange, etc., made it really, really difficult. And I thought the first night I did, I thought, oh, maybe it was just a warm venue. I'll try it again tomorrow. And it was exactly the same thing. So I did like a kind of a bodged up version of it, really, is the reality. Because yeah, it's hard. It's hard to do. And so bear that in mind if you're ever going doing something, taking it from close up to doing it in a stage setting, like if it's true knuckle busting sleight of hand, be ready and give thought to give consideration to the possibility that your hands and fingers might not be in the show as they are when you're practicing at 2 o'clock that afternoon backstage. Be ready for that because you could end up in all sorts of trouble.
Have you found a trick for that section now, or is it something that you just put different things in to keep it different?
So this is it, me talking about it on a deeper level. I've started to wonder whether I'll get used to it. So I've kept it in. And I did it every show we did. I think we've done ten of those Young and Strange Delusionist shows now. And the last run we did, which we did 4, I did it every night in the kind of hope that maybe I'll get a bit less sweaty, maybe my fingers will get used to it, but yeah, it hasn't happened yet. And I didn't get a chance to do it every single night. But yeah, I'd really love to find a way to make it was amazing actually. I've done it in close up for people, but it's normally because it's a bit angly. I've done it for 1 or 2 people at a time. I did it in close up gigs for a while, but actually, something I haven't said is that doing that moment where you've got the 2 in each hand and you throw one across and then they look again and you've still got 2 in each hand, doing that in front of a theatre audience was an amazing experience for me because 1,000 people went, "Oh!" And so that was cool. That was really cool because I've always thought it was a really cool moment, and seeing that it worked even on a screen, and that moment isn't very hard to do. You're not doing much technical stuff at that exact moment. There are other bits in Coin One which are more difficult. Um, so yeah, that was a really cool experience doing it. Gonna keep trying.
Well, I bet that was an amazing moment to hear everyone react to that coin going across. And yeah, I remember when this came out. Actually, I want to say maybe it was Theory 11 or someone like that put it out. I remember the trailer being very cool for it, and I remember just being absolutely dumbfounded by it. It just looks incredible. It really is a wonderful, wonderful trick.
Hello guys, I'm here to talk to you about Alakazam Unlimited. This is the best streaming platform in the world, I'm telling you now. With Alakazam Unlimited, you get access to over 150 magic routines. This is video performances and explanations. We have card magic, coin magic, kids magic, rope magic, mentalism, stage, parlor, impromptu. We've got you covered. All of this for the low price of just £4.99 a month, and you can cancel at any time. Perfect if you've got commitment issues. Yes, I'm talking to you. Guys, you are going to absolutely love it. If you haven't joined the platform already, what the heck are you doing? Alakazam Unlimited is a streaming platform that you need to be a part of. Not only that, there is also exclusive content only available on the platform. Check it out now, alakazam.co.uk. Cheers.
And it does lead us on to your 6th position. So what did you put into your 6th spot?
You know what? If you're on a desert island, I think that there's a possibility at some point that a bottle is going to wash up on the shore, right? And bottle through table is a trick that I would really miss doing. I don't, I know there's maybe not anybody else on this island, or maybe I've been, maybe it's like Lost and it's a plane crash and there's 30 other people. That is a trick I'm not a performer who really needs to be in front of an audience. I've learned that. I've gone on long, long tours with Champions of Magic, and then I have long periods off. And of course, we all had a lot of time off in COVID. And what I realized was actually I don't need an audience. I'm not a performer like that where I need it. But if there is one trick I miss performing sometimes, it is bottle through table. When I go to a close up job and they don't have bottles on the table, I'm annoyed because I know it's such a good trick. And, like I talked about earlier, it's got that moment of astonishment with it. Uh, and yeah, it's just brilliant. Obviously, there's the various different versions. There's Faye Presto's version where she does it and it goes through the table slowly. You should pick up Faye's lecture notes if you haven't. They're absolutely brilliant. And she talks about all of her material in it. They're some of the best lecture notes I've ever seen. And I know Teller thinks the same thing. Teller loves her lecture notes. Um, yeah, Faye's version's incredible. I don't do Faye's version, frankly, because I'm not brave enough. She holds that bottle there for a long time when it's not what it seems to be anymore. And it's very, very brave. And I've watched her do it, and she just has a commanding presence when she performs. I think even if somebody does see something, they're not going to say anything. Also, critical detail, Faye, she wraps it with 2 napkins, which is very, very important if you're going to do her version. Uh, Again, won't say why. Pretty obvious if you know the method, but 2 napkins really helps making sure nobody notices what's happened. I do Etienne Pradier's version with the coin, dragging the coin backwards and forwards across the table. It's getting much harder to get hold of coins from people. I have to have a coin in my pocket now when I do it. But just a brilliant trick. Some of the best photos of me that have ever been taken at weddings. If you perform at weddings and you do bottle through table, tell the photographer what that trick is and what happens, because it's a because it has that moment of astonishment, which I know I mentioned earlier. If the photographer knows what's coming, they can get the most incredible photo. If they put their camera onto burst mode, if you give them a cue line, they will get that moment when everybody goes, "Holy," you know. So yeah, one of the best photos of me that was ever taken at a wedding was as I did bottle through table, and again I tipped off the photographer, and they followed me around the tables and they got it. They got them. The perfect shot. It looks staged. It literally looks staged because everybody's eyes are wide and their jaws are open. It's a real photograph. So yeah, and again, if I've got this bottle, maybe I'll be able to put a note in the bottle and send it off and let somebody know that I'm stuck on this bloody island.
Yeah, bottle through table is one that obviously we were going to have before. And it's funny how the same names come up. So Etienne Pradier and Faye Presto. But it does bring us to the tail end of your 8 tricks. So we are now on number 7. What did you put in your 7th position?
So this actually links quite nicely to Etienne because it's a thing I do in close up, and I nearly released it a few years ago, but we couldn't figure out a way to make it work for the reasons I'm about to explain. So about 20 years ago, I saw Etienne lecture, and he does a trick with a index in his pocket of bills of banknotes, and effectively it's a bill switch, and he will say to the spectator, name a country, and he takes their bill, folds it, unfolds it, doing the bill switch with the thumb tip, and changes it sometimes into the country that they named. And Etienne will be the first to tell you this, that it's a bit of a blag, his version of it, and it's kind of a gag, really. I always loved it. I loved it, and I could see it was there was more, and I think Etienne has in his pocket about maybe eight different currencies. Um, and he kind of groups together places that look similar with banknotes, etc. Like, I'm sure you can imagine about wanting to sound like a bit of casual racism, but there are certain places in the world where there are bills that look, ethically, they look like they're from certain places, and so Etienne used that to his advantage. Well, so there were two things that happened. I saw Etienne lecture it, and then I also saw Tom Peterson, the late great Tom Peterson lecture, and Tom Peterson taught a bill switch which did not use a thumb tip, and it was brilliant. And he was very passionate about the fact that the bill switch does not need a thumb tip. In fact, there are disadvantages to the thumb tip that actually, if you get rid of it, you can more freely show the bill. And yes, you have to steal it away at the end, but you've got more freedom. You've got more freedom there. And Anyway, when I was gigging a lot, when I was doing a lot of close-up jobs, I thought about combining these two ideas, and I rang Etienne and I said, "Your index thing has spaces for thumb tips. If I don't use a thumb tip anymore, in theory, I've now got more room in my pocket for bills, right? Folded up bills." And he said, "Yes." And he said, "You should pursue that." He said, "I'll make you a gimmick." And he did. A couple of days later, this little gimmick arrived at my house, and it's an index basically that sits in my pocket. And for the next 2 years, I went on a little bit of a mission to find a way to make this trick work every single time. So every table I walk up to, I borrow a bill and I ask them a question about country, and it works. And after about 2 years, I managed to get it to a point where not only was it working once, but it would work twice. I could say to them, "Well, where else?" Because they would always go, "Oh, a bit like brainwave tech. Well, everybody must say the Seychelles or whatever." And I'll tell you how I did. I'm very happy to share it. If you've listened this far into a podcast, I'm sure you don't mind if I share a little bit of the workings behind it. What I did was I changed the question. That was the game changer. I suddenly realized one night that, as rather than what Etienne was doing, where he was saying name a country, actually there was a way to change the question and look for a certain type of person to ask the question to that would give you a much more narrowed down answer. So I would always look for a woman aged between 25 and 50. And a question I would ask was, do you have a dream holiday destination? Now, if you ask that question, I guarantee you're going to get about 20 answers, no more, no less. And you can work it all the time, and you're going to get about 20 places, and they're all very warm places, and they're lots of little islands, and that's what I've been doing for years. And it's the trick that in my close-up set that I'm most proud of. I've worked it myself. It's thanks to Etienne and Tom Peterson. They're putting their two things together. But I now have an index in my pocket, which is like I said, I know it, and I've got about 20 bills in my pocket, and it's done under the motion. They sign the bill, and then I say to them, "Do you have a dream holiday destination?" And as they say it, as I'm putting away the Sharpie pen, is then when I copy it from the index, and then I do Tom Peterson's. I then listen at the end. People will always say, "Well, I would have said Barbados. I would have said this." And so I just pretend I haven't heard that. And then I listen for places that I know I've also got. And then I'll go, "Well, where would you have said?" And they'll go, "Well, I would have said Barbados." I go, "Right, watch again." And I do it again. Um, it's a really strong piece of magic. I'm heartbroken that it's getting harder and harder to get cash off people. And I know one day I am going to have to say goodbye to this trick, which I worked on so hard. Um, but it is something that I do that's unique. And like I said, I spoke to Vanishing Ink a few years ago about putting it out as a product, and it just got complicated because you do have to get all these different bills from all these different, and they are the real bills. So, I know the right countries that you need. And, I know what the little thing is that sits in your pocket, but it just was uneconomical to make because there are some countries where you can get a denomination of bill and it's going to cost you 20p. But unfortunately, like Japan, their lowest denomination is about £12. So it doesn't quite work as a magic product. In a way, it was COVID when we were talking about putting it out. And I was a little bit, I don't mind saying this, it was a tough time for everybody. I was keen to do something and keen to maybe make some money doing it. And actually, on reflection, I'm kind of pleased I didn't put it out. I'm kind of pleased that, like the gig I did last Saturday, I did it, and people said to me, "I've never seen anybody else do that. I've seen loads of magicians. I've never seen that." Um, we do a version of it in Champions of Magic, um, uh, and yeah, it's a stage version of it. So my hands are very free. And yeah, we've got many more options because it's a stage show, and we had an amazing night. I put it on the Young and Strange Instagram where I said to somebody, "We throw out a ball, so I can't be sure it's going to land with a woman." So sure enough, we threw out this ball one night, and yeah, it landed with a guy. And I said, "Do you have a dream holiday destination?" And him trying to be funny, he said Antarctica. And thank God we had that currency in our index. It, it wasn't as great at moments. I thought it was going to be really. I was impressed with my, I was impressed. All the magicians on stage were impressed because they knew it was in the index, and we've been waiting for a couple of years for someone to finally say it. But actually, it was one of those moments where I think people just thought, "Is this a setup or something? Like, how did they throw that ball to that guy?" Tricks can be too good sometimes, can't they?
Yeah, it's great. It's I've seen Etienne do that trick, and every time it's absolutely phenomenal to watch. It's that because he's so quick and snappy, and like you say, he sort of blags his way around certain scenarios and situations, but he's just so quick and fast paced. He gets away with it. So seeing your version would be even more incredible because we're not relying, by the sounds of it, I'm not relying on watching him try and get himself out of certain situations. So yeah, that's really, really clever. Did you say it's on your Instagram so people can see a version of it?
Yeah. There's the stage version of it is on and it's the Antarctica clip actually because we had an iPad at the back of the room that night, and the Antarctica version is on the Young and Strange Instagram. Uh, if you look up my terrible close-up magic show reel from about 10 years ago that's still on YouTube somewhere, if you put Richard Young close-up magician into YouTube, you'll find this really bad old show reel, and I think there's a couple of clips of me doing it in that. But it's like all I've done really is I went through the pain with it. There was a lot of embarrassment is the reality. There were a lot of times figuring out what that index was, going through the process every time places would keep coming up, not having it, going, right, I need to add that to this. It was fascinating. I remember actually that there was a year where Croatia kept coming up. It was a really weird place. And I found out that Croatia had spent something like 50 million euros on marketing themselves as a vacation destination, right? So like there's like things like that were there. But yeah, I went through a lot of pain with it, a lot of embarrassment to get it to the point where it is today, where I don't even think about it now. I just know that it's going to work.
Well, I'm sure it's a phenomenal effect, and hopefully we'll all get to see a version of it one day. But it does bring us on to your final choice. So what did you put into your 8th position?
I'm thinking by now I'm all magicked out. I've got to get off. Got to get off this island, right? Got to get off. Got to get off this island. And so I'm gonna bring a flying rig with me. Um, you know what? I've been into magic my whole life. It's a long time now, over 30 years, and I've played with every trick I've liked, every stage illusion that I fell in love with as a kid at some point. I've been really lucky to have either seen the prop in person or we've owned one or I know someone that owned one. Well, there's one piece of magic apparatus I've never been able to play with, and it's that of a flying rig. A really good one, without naming names, the ones that the grand illusionists in Las Vegas and the ones that do world tours uh, always end up going towards because they know it's an absolute showstopper. Um, the technology of it is just absolutely amazing. I've heard so many stories about it over the years, of people falling and, it's the one trick I've never played with. So I guess if I'm going to this island, I would love to take something that I know I would find endlessly fascinating. And yeah, I can fly like a bird. That'd be good, wouldn't it?
Can I ask, why is it the trick that you haven't ever played with?
It's really expensive, incredibly expensive, and it's also very impractical. The only way really you could ever tour with it is you've got to be at the very top of the tree, right? You've got to be the Copperfield, Chris Angel, Rick Thomas, the Elliott brothers. You've got to have money behind you, not just to acquire the thing in the first place, but to be able to tour with it, to have great lighting. You're probably going to spend as much on the lighting as you have on the actual trick itself. Um, Same goes for the backdrop, right? Like it's just not within my grasp in terms of where we are. I've always said Strange and I, if we ever did it, we couldn't looking at the pair of us, we could never fly like Superman. Like we'd look stupid. I always remember the scene in Willy Wonka where they drink the fizzy lifting drinks and they just take off and they can't get down. I always thought that would be a really fun way for Young and Strange to do it, to take off and not be able to get down. I think no one's ever done it that way. But whether we'll ever get to play with it or not, I don't know. It's the apparatus alone is about 100 grand. Um, and then you can probably double or triple that by the time you've taken into account all the other stuff you're going to need: costuming, lighting, backdrops, hoops, whatever you're going to do. Like it's gonna rack up. It's probably 500,000 by the time you're done, I reckon. I probably underestimated it initially. Probably about 500,000.
Wow. Yep. Absolutely great choice, though. And it sort of brings your list full circle, because we started with that Grand Illusion portal and we're ending on a flying rig. And it does lead us very nicely into your 2 curveball items. So these are the 2 items that you're only allowed 1 of. So what did you go for your book?
So the book's really interesting. I want to go for a big book. And the book I've read 2 books in the last year that were long. And the one I've decided to go with is Derren Brown's Notes from a Fellow Traveller. I was very lucky to do the book launch with Derren when he launched this book at the Magic Circle. I got to interview him the night that it was released, and we did a lovely signing with it. But he sent me the book about 3 months before the night, and it's a long book. It's like 600 pages, and I truly did. I consumed it from the first page to the last, and I I haven't read enough magic books to say it's the greatest magic book ever written. It would not be right for me to say that because I haven't read enough. But I think it's quite clear to me that this point in time, it's possibly the most important magic book that's out there. It's relevant to a lot of performers right now. It's all of his own experience and um, some amazing tips and some great stories that will make you realize that even the very greatest, which he is, fucks up sometimes and has to get out of trouble and all the rest of it. I just found it endlessly inspiring, and there's a quote in it which I genuinely have thought about having tattooed, albeit I've never had a tattoo, so I'll probably never do it. But of all the 600 pages I read in the book, there was this one bit, and it's quite near the beginning actually, where he's talk. I can't remember specifically what it is he's talking about, but there's this bit at the end where he says, and I haven't got this exactly right because I couldn't find it in the book. I should have photographed it or something. But the quote is, "It is in truth a human relationship which they seek. Our job is always to connect." And for me, that's everything. That is everything. That doesn't matter whether you're Chris Angel, you're Chris Harding doing a wedding, you're Paul Megram doing another brilliant kids show, you're Luke Jamay with a brand new mentalism show. Every single magician, that is it right there. That is everything. Forget whatever you think magic's about. Forget whatever you're doing it for. We do it, especially in the early days. We do things where we do it for our own gratification, right? We like to show the things we've worked on. That right there is Derren Brown in his 50s with all of his experience, with all the millions in the bank, with all the TV shows. That quote right there is everything that any magician needs to know. And if you always have that in the back of your mind, it is in truth a human relationship which they seek. Our job is always to connect. You won't go far wrong.
Yeah, very true. I know that it was years ago now, hearing Derren talk about it should never really be about the performer. And he said that there was a point in his career where, it was about him, and it was him doing these clever things. And he realized that it should be about their experience and what they were going through. And sometimes the enjoyment of someone else is watching someone else's transformation and seeing them experience something. It should never really be about us. We are just the people that are allowing these things to happen so that other people can have these incredible experiences. And hopefully, in some cases, it really does change people for the better. So yeah, it's such a wonderful book. And I was there the night that you did the podcast, the recording in the theatre, and a pin could have dropped in the Magic Circle Theatre, which never happens. A pin could have dropped. It was so well put together, it was so well run, and listening to Derren talk about those stories, it was really an incredible thing to witness and see come to fruition, really.
Yeah, I was really lucky. That night came out of nowhere, really. I went to his show, and I went to see it in Dartford. It's a long way from where I live. And I went with my girlfriend, and it was 3 hours from home, and I knew the show wouldn't finish till 10 o'clock. So I booked us a hotel for the night. And after the show, we went to the hotel, and it was just by a genuinely complete coincidence. It was the hotel Darren was staying in. And he saw us checking in, and he came over, and it was really weird because we just watched him for 3 hours. And he said, "Oh, we're having a drink in the bar. Come and join us." So we went up to the room, dropped the bags, and came downstairs. And he he mentioned then, he said, I've written a book for magicians. It's nearly finished. I'd love to come on your podcast and talk about it." And at that point, actually, I hadn't made a podcast for a few years. I don't think he knew I'd sort of stopped. But I heard myself going, "Oh yeah, definitely, we should do that," because And then he got back in touch when the book was finished, and then it just went backwards and forwards like table tennis over emails, where basically it turned from we should do a podcast to maybe we should get a little live audience. Maybe we should hire the circle. Why don't we do like a book launch? Why don't we do a little meet and greet at the end and I'll sign all the, and it just turned into this, it turned into a really nice evening. And I think every magician had a great time. Uh, Darren was amazing and he was brilliant in the interview. And it was right in the thick of when they were working on Unbelievable as well. They were really crazy working hard. And the fact that he found that evening to come and do it, spend the time and then stay till it was 11 o'clock. It was nearly 11 o'clock at night when he signed the last book. He was there for hours. He made time to talk to everybody. It was incredible.
Yeah, it was an amazing night. So, thank you for putting that on behalf of everyone. But it does bring us onto your final item. And you alluded at the very beginning of the podcast that you had difficulty with this one. So I'm interested to see where it goes.
It's going to take this podcast full circle, right back to the very beginning, what you talked about at the very beginning. What I'm going to do, I want to take a photo frame. And in it, it's going to be a single photo. Just one person. That person is Sam Strange. And it is so every single day when I'm on that island and it's tough and I'm struggling to find food and it's really hot and I don't have any suntan lotion and, I've, made friends with a football, named it Wilson. But I'm on about the days when it's really tough, when I've not been able to shave for months. I want to be able to look at that photo of Sam Strange in the frame and think, thank you, lucky stars. At least you don't have to spend time with that dickhead anymore.
I don't even know where to go after this one.
What is more interesting, Jamie? I can't wait for you to tell Strange that that's what I said.
Yeah, well, so when we've had a couple of people say photos of other people, but I have sort of reminded them that if you wanted him there, even though you've said that you're going to take the picture so that you don't have to spend time with him, if you did want to take him, he could be your item that you take with you.
We can't stand each other. It's been a long time. It's interesting, isn't it? Penn and Teller, 50 years together, and Penn quite often says, "Oh, we're not friends," and we just. I don't believe it. I said this recently on another podcast. There's no way those two have been together for 50 years. The things they've shared, the millions of dollars they've made, the TV shows, Broadway, Australia, the West End. There's no way they're not friends. There is a deep bond between Penn and Teller that is like family. And for Strange and I, it's like similar. We're brothers, right? We fight like brothers and we don't always get on. We've got better. We give each other space, and actually, we work well together quite often. We've just done some things in the last few weeks that we worked on, and it was just sort of me and him and a couple of close friends, sort of, threw in a few little bits here and there to kind of complete the picture. We've got so many amazing friends who help us. Three in particular, actually. It was Rob James, um, Andy Nyman, and Alex Jarrett, who is the producer of Champions of Magic. All three of them I don't know what it is sometimes. It's, the saying, it's hard to see it's quite fitting. It's sometimes hard to see the picture when you're in the frame. Yeah, it is sometimes you just need that those extra voices to go. I mean, Andy Nyman made a suggestion to us recently that I never forget. He said it and he went, "Well, obviously it's this." It was not obvious. He's just got this brain that just works in this particular way. That is just he's Andy effing Nyman. Like, it's obvious to him. It's not to anybody else. So yeah, we've been really lucky. But we get on well, and we give each other space, and um yeah, and we've shared some amazing experiences together. But even with all of that said, there is absolutely no way I'm going to listen to his podcast. So not a chance.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your list. We will be getting him on. So the way that I'm going to put these podcasts out is it's going to be yours one week, followed by his. So it's still young and strange. You're going to be side by side.
And can you tell me, like, a month later, which ones had the most downloads? Because that's really all I care about. I'm interested to know where we sit in the food chain of, magicians listening to Alakazam podcasts. Let me know.
Deal. If people want to find out more about you, Richard, where can they go to?
So we have our own podcast, obviously. This is I've been really genuinely enjoying listening to your podcast, Jamie, and really love the Simon Lipkin episode in particular. I really enjoyed that. But our podcast is called the Magicians Podcast Network. It's not free, unlike your one, and it's a part of the subscription service, but people will get 10 magic podcasts a month, and we have lots of different contributors to it. Different guests every week: Alan Hudson, Alex McAleer, and Neb and Harry. And we have everything from nostalgia-based podcasts where we go back and watch old TV shows. We cover events as and when they happen. So we just did 3 podcasts last week or a few weeks ago, all about Magic Live. And yeah, we have Neb and Harry get set little challenges every week. Hudson and I always talk to a special guest. So it's a lot of fun. It's a great little community, and if you can try it for free on Apple Podcasts. Genuinely, there is a free 3-day free trial. Hard to get those 3 and 3s right. And we've got 230 podcasts that we've made, so you can just sign up, binge it all, and just remember to cancel it as soon as you subscribe, and you won't get charged a penny. But I'm pretty sure you'll love what you hear. If you're listening to this podcast, you'll love the Magicians Podcast Network, I think, so you could give us a try there.
And if they want to see you in a show, have you got any coming up?
Yep. So Young and Strange, you can find us on Instagram. We obviously work in Champions of Magic, which is touring the US again from November, running all the way through to June next year. And also in January, we're doing 3 more Young and Strange shows as well on the East Coast of America. So best just to follow us on Instagram, and you'll pick us up from time to time when we're in different places.
Amazing. And I have to say, I was recently on one of Alex McAleer's episodes. If you're a fan of concept podcasts, which I certainly am, a concept podcast in the idea that there is a more of a purpose or a theme to that podcast. I loved it. I think it was such a great idea. And it's one of those things where you really do go back to your childhood. We went all the way back and relived everything.
You chatted about Max Magic, didn't you? I remember listening to it. Yeah. So the Alex McAleer's podcast is called Through the Magic of Television, and every week with a special guest, he revisits an old Magic TV special from years gone by. So like you, for example, Jamie, obviously you are a fan of Max Magic, but we've also had a lot of podcasts where people are not just fans, but that they were actually involved in the making of the show. So at Christmas time, we did a double bill special with John Lenihan, all about Stuff the White Rabbit. We've had the Secret Cabaret covered by the Simon who made that. We've had interesting ones like Michael J. Fitch did one. He attended the recording of a Paul Daniels Christmas special years ago. And so there's some interesting stories about what really happened when it was all filmed. We've had Ali Cook on talking about the secret world of magic that he made with Pete Furman back. Again, another Sky One series around the time Max Magic was on. So yeah, like if there's some magic from your past that you've watched and enjoyed, almost certainly Alex has now made like 50 episodes. There'll be something on it that you'll be able to go through the feed and go, I remember watching that. And also you get a link to the actual TV show as well. So even if you never saw it, if you click on it, if you like the sound of it and you like the guest, you click on it, but if you never saw it, you don't know what they're talking about. There's a link, and we call it the empty safe, where you can actually go on and watch it while you're listening to people talking about it.
Superb. Well, thank you so much again for giving us your time and giving us your list, Richard.
Thanks for having me on. It's been great fun. Great to be on the other side of the fence. I've really enjoyed it.
And thank you all for listening. Remember, we do have a new midweek episode as well. If you want to be a part of that, then simply send us in your list of 8 tricks, 1 book and 1 item. Send it to sales@alakazam.co.uk, and with the subject line, My Desert Island List, that will come through to me, and then we will do a midweek episode. So send those in, and we can get you on the podcast. So thank you all for listening again. Thank you once again to Richard, and do go check out everything with him and his podcast. It's phenomenal. And we will hear from you all again next week. Goodbye for now.
Hi, Peter Nardi here, and I really hope you enjoyed that podcast. I just wanted to let you know that Alakazam have their own app. You can download it from the App Store or the Google Play Store. By downloading the app, it will make your shopping experience even slicker at Alakazam. You'll also get exclusive in-app offers and in-app live streams. So go download it now, and we'll see you on the next podcast.